morning. Thank you all so much for being here. I have to say, well, coming from the River District groundbreaking over there, and I made it in, but I didn't realize they said 11:30, so I wanted to come out sooner than that. So I appreciate your waiting and your patience relative to that. As I always do, I give you some general updates and make comments on specific matters. Particularly, I'll start with public safety, and I'll do just that, and afterwards turn it over to John to move through any questions that you may have of me. But to start with public safety, again, always starting with the year-to-date stats using preliminary data, always from the New Orleans Police Department. And I'm reporting through November 25th, again comparing 2023 to 2022, continuing to show progress. You know, as I always say, it doesn't mean that we haven't had issues with violent crime in our city, even as it relates to what we've seen over the past day or so. Apprehensions made there, but again, NOPD continues to be engaged, continues to make sure that deployment strategies are aligned with what they're seeing on the ground, and this keeps this city safe, but keeping us on that path. Total crimes against persons remain down at 20%, murders 22% down, armed robberies 36%, non-fatal shooting incidents and victims are both down 20%, carjackings remain down at 45%. We had a really successful Bayou Classic weekend. Even as you know, starting off it was like, whoa, but when we got into that weekend, again, steady progress there and boots on the ground with a unified command. Coverage of activities from the 23rd of November to the 25th in the 8th District alone netted 37. That's a total gun arrests. Again, engaged on the ground, keeping this city safe. The 2nd District, 6th, 7th, and 8th District, state police, of course, our Orleans Parish, our Sheriff's Office, work collaboratively. Again, this is a unified command, as I call it, to patrol the areas and kept all of our folks safe. The breakdown for arrests, I'll give it to you like this, are as follows. 2 juveniles arrested, 1 convicted felon arrested, 1 weapon confiscated with obliterated serial number, 1 ghost gun confiscated. This is a big deal relative to what I've just shared. On Monday, 23 new recruits, very excited about that, officially began their journey to joining the New Orleans Police Department with the launch of our recruitment class 200. And as you know, again, public service is not a demand. It really is a passion. And I just want to say thank you again to our recruits who stepped up and wanted to link themselves with the best police department in the country, and again, exhibiting their passion to service. The New Orleans Police Department has also, of course, always focusing on recruitment as well as retention. I wanted to share, not only was this the 4th recruit class this year alone, but also we gained 90 recruits that either graduated or are actively participating in the academy currently. And this is substantial, again, as it relates to comparing 2022 to 2023, seeing progress there. Also saw, 14 former police officers, NOPD, be reinstated. That's a good sign. In addition to the 3 lateral transfers, again, movement, progress, step in the right direction. We'll just continue to make sure that we're meeting our officers where they are as well. That comes even with the public approving homestead exemption, making sure, again, giving our officers what they need. Every little bit matters, and so we're happy about that. Also wanted to tout once again the New Orleans Police Department, our crime lab. Receiving accreditation from the American National Standards Institute, National Accreditation Board in the field of forensic training, forensic testing, which is huge. This means that NOPD's firearms and advanced crime scene units have received renewed accreditation, while the crime scene unit has received its first accreditation. Again, step in the right direction, and just kudos to our director there, Crime Lab Director, Dr. Kelly. Just wanting to thank her publicly once again for her steadfast leadership and just making sure that we're keeping our standards high. And she hit the ground running. She just did. The work will not stop where we are now, and as the lab will continue to enhance, it's really, we're building out one of the cities in the country that really has this opportunity as we're building out this crime lab, and we're very much focused on enhancing policies relative to practices to maintain our current accreditations. This also speaks to us working very hard, seeking accreditation in drug chemistry and DNA units for full accreditation. Again, NOPD is seeking public comment. I'm transitioning here. This is relative to the use of drones in the city. Work very hard to get direct allocation of resources, of course deploying those resources to force multipliers, tools, and equipment that our officers identified as what they feel that they need, again, to be those force multipliers. We heard the public say, hey, while they love the public comment period, they felt that it was over a holiday weekend, we heard them, and again extended that public comment period through December the 1st. As of Monday, I know that we had over right about 100 comments thus far, but again, the need to extend, we were very happy to do that. On yesterday, held our focus on Dirty Dozen. I know that when I brought that up months ago, that seemed to spark great attention, and we wanted to make sure that we just did our due diligence every step of the way. Of course, as we look at criminal blight, working at the state level to make that available, just another tool in our toolkit to help fight back blight and code enforcement. But the Dirty Dozen was joined by Deputy CEO Thomas Mulligan, as well as our Director of Code Enforcement, Mr. Anthony Davis, to officially announce our full list of the 12 most notable blighted properties. Of course, there are more than 12. We have to focus one bite at a time, but also as we continue to deploy our code enforcement efforts throughout the city of New Orleans. So we're not taking or moving away from other blight in the city, but just again concentrating very much heavily, more aggressively on the most 12 notable blighted properties. Following the press conference, you all saw, we did bring down 3418 Sullen Place after receiving an emergency demolition order earlier this month. And I have to say, the residents who lived adjacent, they were home, and I know immediately after the house was demolished, it improved their daily quality of life, but even the community as a whole. And when you look at that area, you see that one blighted property, but again, adjacent to properties that are well maintained and well kept. So getting to this point, getting blocks to a tipping point, if you will, knock it down, creating again a more viable community to further investment, and bringing properties back on the tax rolls. That's by bringing them back into commerce. This has all been aided by a $10 million boost in the budget of code enforcement. And we've just seen, again, progress here. As of November 15th, 129 demolitions have been completed across the city, surpassing the 2022 of 105 demolitions. And this is a 23% increase. So again, progress. We'll take it how we get it and how we see it and how we work towards it. So far this year, 4,831 lots have been cut and maintained, which is again on track to exceed 2022 by 30%. So again, progress, and that's what we want to see. Doing what we say and making sure that resources are deployed and we're using them wisely. Additionally, code enforcement has collected approximately $2.6 million in fines and fees. So again, very aggressively working there. And at this rate, the department may exceed its 2022 stats by over 20%. So again, This is a big deal. The staffing size was also increased by 23% from 2022, and we will not and cannot stop there. We are hiring in the city of New Orleans, and code enforcement is one of those departments as well. Safety and permits, of course, all embedded there. Switching gears just a minute, Lincoln Beach, that planned development, very excited about Lincoln Beach. $24.6 million in funding to redevelop this historically, culturally, and environmentally significant site. And of course, particularly to the African American community of the city of New Orleans, wanting to see this, 50 years, right, on a hiatus, but this is coming back, and it means so much. And what I love about it, it's catalytic, but when you start hearing from adjacent property owners who never thought that this would happen, they're like, wow, it matters. Again, catalytic. These adjacent owners are gearing up even how they will be able to redevelop their properties. Again, this is what transformative but also catalytic projects mean. In June, we announced that the RFQ for the development of Lincoln Beach, its redevelopment master plan, was out for public bid. In response, we had 5 proposals submitted to the city. The project team selected Sasaki Associates and Inc. to develop the master plan for Lincoln Beach. So again, we're very excited. This will absolutely incorporate and involve the public, the community, every step of the way. We're glad to be where we are here today. We're going to have a press conference on tomorrow specifically about Lincoln Beach. But also as a reminder, we ask all residents to please stay away from Lincoln Beach because of several dangers that have been identified. And of course, we want this project to move swiftly and of course safely. I wanted to also just make mention of this, and I'm going to turn it over to John. Now this was in regards to a most recent article relative to green infrastructure in the city of New Orleans. And I received this from one of my fierce leaders working tirelessly on behalf of the administration and just a unified team in this regard. And I received this email from Mary. And this was on Sunday. She sent this to me Sunday morning, 9:55 a.m. She says, Madam Mayor, I want to express how sorry I am about the tone of today's article in The Advocate about the Gentilly Resilience District. Although I was interviewed and shared the timeline for projects that are complete, Oak Park, in construction, St. Roch, Maribou, and shortly to be advertised, Broadmoor. That information, along with the $185 million in projects that are ready for construction, were not highlighted at all in the article. I am particularly disappointed about the language around debundling, an approach that our group hopes will have positive impacts for small, local, and disadvantaged businesses in our city, which has been a priority, not just with my administration, the city council, leadership of the city, state level, and the like, about giving our businesses, our small businesses, a real opportunity and a shake to participate in the redevelopment of projects in this city. Again, giving them a shake, and at every level of an opportunity. Had to say that. I apologize that this article does not convey the depths of your commitment and our commitment to green infrastructure and climate adaptation. I'm sharing this because this is not about at all LaToya Cantrell being the mayor of the city. It's about the hard-working men and women that do this job every single day to deliver on behalf of the residents of this city. And so I mention this all the time about how our folks are working hard and how service, is, I feel is under attack. But at the end of the day, service is really about passion. And so like Mary, who reached out to me and wrote this to me, who apologized, who shouldn't have to. So I'm saying I apologize to you, Mary, and all of our team who continue to do the work on behalf of this city. And the fruits, are represented in their labor. But most importantly, when we overlook the facts and withheld real information to the public. It feels disingenuous. But also, this city is spending more federal dollar than any city in the United States of America right now. And it is on infrastructure, it is on climate adaptation, and we have to make sure that words, they do matter. And we also have to embrace the resources that have been deployed to this city to help ourselves. So when things are left out intentionally, it's not a shot across the bow just for my administration, but it's the hardworking men and women of this city, but also the federal government that we work tirelessly with to make sure that we make the improvements that we know we need in the city, but for generations to come. So with that, John, I'm going to turn it over to you, and we'll go through any questions that may be provided to
Start
me.
with WDSU.
Mayor Cantrell, how are you?
Thank you for asking.
The Plaza Tower, you announced the potential demo of that. How would that work? Is there a target date to potentially do it, and how much could it cost? Kind of elaborate on how it would work.
So first of all, I don't have all of that information to share with you this morning. A part of it too is us doing our due diligence. We don't know how much it's going to cost. That's the next step. And that is one step in addition to steps that we have taken to prepare for demolition if that should occur. So we will continue to work with the ownership, create the balance necessary. We would love for the building to be redeveloped, no doubt about it. It is on one of the most endangered lists in terms of historic places in our city, but in the country. So our goal, I would hope for it to be redeveloped, but I do understand the costs associated with redevelopment and creating the funding metrics necessary for, again, a full redevelopment. So I don't have a full complement based on the question that you asked, but just know that the city of New Orleans is just taking every step that's necessary, whether that's demolition, as well as working with the developer and or the ownership for redevelopment.
Is there an estimated date where a decision could possibly be made, or a time frame?
I'm not going to lock us into that, but what I will say is as we get closer, we'll share.
And any idea, sorry, last question, about if it were to be demoed, would it have to be, piece by piece, or how the Hard Rock had partial implosion? How could that work potentially?
Sure, that really just speaks to why we want to do our due diligence, to learn more about what that needs to look like. So working with stakeholders that can provide us with the level of detail that you're asking me for. Right now, I don't have that information. We haven't taken that deeper dive, but I can say that is the next step. And as soon as we have the info, we'll share.
WWL.
Hi, good morning, Mayor. Just piggybacking off of the Dirty Dozen, you all mentioned that you've, of course, identified this dozen of properties and also outpacing the demolition that you all have been doing just across the city compared to last year. But we still have quite a large backlog when it comes to properties that still need to be demolished. Do you have any details or plans how to, I guess, to kind of walk and chew gum at the same time, attack the Dirty Dozen and keep track of the backlog? Or
Sure. So the backlog really speaks to why and not only the backlog, but also just the overall need in the city. It speaks to why I fought very tirelessly for resources, but also making sure that we boosted the budget of code enforcement by $10 million. And this is something that we share with my administration and with the council, and we're just seeing how the department is utilizing these dollars, and we're just seeing the results on the ground in terms of progress. So, we're not taking our eye off the ball at all. Blight is very complicated, and we're just doing everything necessary to walk and chew gum at the same time, and you can do that. It starts with resources, and I believe that we have done our due diligence, making sure that we put those resources. $10 million is a lot of money, and it's there because the needs are great, and we're taking this very seriously. It's a priority.
Do you think that goes back to, I guess, hiring more people to address that backlog? I know you mentioned hiring.
It's a holistic approach. Absolutely, the capacity matters, meaning in terms of code enforcement, and having more inspectors out there, but that's what we're doing. Even as it relates to fleet, we invested very heavily in fleet, because again, our employees have to go out into the field. So it's just really connecting all the dots relative to the resources and tools that are needed to fight blight in the city of New Orleans.
WGNO.
Piggybacking off to each of your dirty dozen,
Yes,
just keep
ma'am.
it going. One of the places that is on the list is Park Fontaine. There are still a lot of tenants that actually live there. So does your administration plan to give them possibly a 3-month notice? How do you guys want to go about that if it is demolished? And do you guys plan to help them find affordable housing going forward?
So as it relates to these developments where people are currently housed, it's an example of how we had to decommission properties even across the river with working with tenants. We will continue to work with tenants, whether they're Park Fontaine or any other location in the city of New Orleans relative to an unhealthy home, doing our best. But I will say, working with the ownership, it matters. We were able to take some off the list because we saw owners doing what they needed to do to bring the properties back into compliance. And so Rue Park Fontaine is on the list, and we're going to be very aggressive, but we will not at all leave or overlook our people.
The advocate.
Mayor, have you had any discussions with the council, or you or your team, any discussions with the council since you unveiled your budget proposal, and how would you characterize those discussions?
So what I will say is that yes, my team continues to engage the New Orleans City Council, of course, through budget hearings. Those are now over, and now it's just circling back around with every council member, understanding after the hearings what may be their priorities, if anything has changed. And those conversations have happened, and so we feel very good about it. I have an update after this briefing with you all, and so I'll learn a little bit more, but as of last night, there are no priorities that are unaligned.
Expecting any major changes from your proposal?
No, as I mentioned, as of last night, conversating with my team, there are no priorities that are not aligned with the city council. So that gives me great hope.
Axios, do you have a question?
Oh, I'm sorry, I think you was asking.
I'll get with her later, but do you have a question?
Yes. Mayor, so on the Dirty Dozen
Yes,
list, the Old Navy base was not on the list.
Mhm.
Is that one, you said that some of the buildings were not on there because the owners were doing their due diligence and making progress. Is that one of those that was moved?
Yes, ma'am. The Old Navy base is one that we are working with the ownership the developer to redevelop that site. As I mentioned previously, we have been in partnership even with HUD, and so that process is moving along. And we hope to get to a point where development happens sooner rather than later. But that is one step that I know is moving in the right direction, and HUD's involvement will be catalytic. Okay, thank you, sir.
One more follow-up question.
Yes, ma'am.
Lincoln Beach, do you have a timeline on that with the master plan?
Well, the timeline will begin, the master planning timeline will begin first quarter of 2024. And so that's when the public will be able to expect a real robust public engagement process. But we're looking at the first quarter, of course, I'm going to say January, but the first quarter of 2024. We're just excited to be here, be at this stage.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Mayor
Thank you.
Cantrell, may I ask